So if you're operating at that under 15%, most likely they're all advocating, but I guess we would advocate for it too, because
So
it's
you get
consistent
interest,
rather
it's
than
money on hand, you're getting a little interest.
Right.
Mhm.
So if you'd like to have some dialogue on it now, great, otherwise think about it, and we're coming back. So it's like, we welcome your thoughts throughout this whole presentation. So if you have thoughts, great. If not, we'll just put it on pause, and we're coming back to this later on. This is just an introduction to the whole topic.
The other thing too is that money is emergency cushion too. I mean, unforeseen things can happen.
We don't have to go take a loan on a last minute. Yeah, we as the school district don't have a credit card payment, right? We have a credit card that gets paid off monthly, it's just used for transactions, but we don't pay any interest on anything. So, yeah, that's what short-term borrowing would be too. We don't have any 1-2 year loans for things. Those are options, they are legitimate options. Larger systems absolutely do have that kind of stuff that happens regularly in order to address the needs. And it's a philosophy, what it comes down to. That is a tool that's available, but it comes with paying interest, right? Mm-hmm. And so right now, we're in an environment where we don't pay interest. So, and in order to do that, we need to have a fund balance that is at a level where we're not having borrowing. But now we do, but like a lease, we have things that are leased here, so that's a payment, but it's not in the capital maintenance. It doesn't need deferred maintenance because it's a lease. So
based on these two presentations back to back, it seems like on page 7, this is one where we really don't want to be at significantly exceeds expectations, because it's great having money available,
right.
But it may be better to be more at meets expectations and be using those funds to be meeting our obligations, like a 5-year technology plan. Yeah.
I agree with you 100%. Okay. Now here's the key. There's it's a mindset is what it comes down to. Because there are individuals that are out there that would ratchet everything in order to get us at that 30%, because you're going to significantly exceed expectations or else kind of thing. So really it comes down to the culture and what's happening at this board level right now today, the 7 board members that are here, on what is the objective? What are you looking for? Because 30%, I would say there's boots on the ground stuff to do. We're building this thing up, but we just saw the technology needs that we have. When we get into our 15-year capital maintenance plan, it's going to be a big red flag as far as trying to grow that to 30%. So I do believe that absolutely is significantly exceeding expectations. I don't have it on my strategic plan to try to grow it, but I think ideally we don't want to continue to deplete it, right? Year after year after year. You know what, that cannot be part of our plan. But there has to be what's the threshold that meets your expectations? What is it?
Just changing the standard.
Yeah.
Just changing the standard is,
about that as well.
yeah, so what you're doing is you're trying to significantly, you gotta remember all that stuff piles up, but I think what you're doing is
See, and the other thing we're in right now that we had never been in before, we never come in over budget. We always had monies left at the end of the year, and that went into the fund balance. That helped the next year along to get things that we missed or, could have bought the next year. We bought a bus or whatever because we couldn't afford it the year before.
Well, I think if you look at the trend, you were growing, and then you intentionally used it, and you went down. Like those are all it's been very intentional.
But we always had money left over. We never were, we never had a budget as close as we do right now. We're budgeting for 0.
Yeah.
And where before we budget for a 5%.
The part of what goes with that it's our enrollment too, the hand.
Right, all of it.
So I just saw a report
times.
today looking at high school enrollment, whatever. We're in the WISE Dash looking at the data, right? And you just see this trend in 10 years. It was 15 years. In 15 years, we dropped 100 students in high school. Just as what it is. That's the community, So when we come up with our 15-year capital maintenance plan, it is absolutely going to take into account enrollment. It'll take into account facility use. It'll take into account being lean, with much internal consolidation as we can. All that, we have to take all that into consideration. And 15 years out, who knows what things are going to be like? But we're going to forecast. We're going to do the best that we can. So, Joe, what was the term you just used before? The standard?
The standard, I want to change the standard. Me personally, I'd like to see the standards change at the board of what significantly meets expectations. We can change those standards.
Right.
I think the biggest thing is making sure that our assets meet our liabilities, and that's something we can forecast pretty well. And I think you can forecast a couple years out as well, even with the Baird model. Maybe not so much beyond that, but we can plan for some of the bigger things. But we can forecast a lot and be really good with our fund balance.
What's helpful, this discussion is very helpful for us, because in the end, when we decide what this metric is, what the standard is, that'll help us when we talk to you about the overall budget itself. And if we're bringing to you a budget that uses $100,000 out of the fund balance and sharing in advance, we'll be able to say, hey, look at the impact. Look at how it's gonna affect your goals. So to me, it all comes together nicely versus like, hey, by the way, we're looking for 100,000 this year, what do you think? And if I'm on the board, I would be like, yeah, that's fine, not that big a deal, because I know the status of the fund balance, I've seen a lot, but you always have to question like, well, how far are you gonna go exactly? Like, when is enough enough? You know, so this is very important.
Would be important.
So I think what's gonna happen, we'll share this, we'll keep just giving you information, overall big picture, because while these are 4 separate categories, they're all interwoven. It takes money to help to establish some of these goals and objectives. So if we are in cutting, as we're trying to grow programs and opportunities, that those two things don't necessarily go together. So it's just, the whole puzzle all fits together. I think after we cover all of that, then we'll actually do the workshop that Joe's talking about, and we'll start handling this and digging down and saying, okay, what is the metric? What is it that you find as the bar? So right now, knowing that 15% is a policy, where does that fit? So just think about it and we'll follow up. So what's your next one?
So we have the audit report. I think a couple meetings ago you found the big fund audit report on there with a couple letters. I'm not going to cover a lot of the stuff I attached here. It's the second time you're going to see it. So this first letter, I'm not going to cover anything. It's page 2 through 4. It says communication with those charged with governance. So what they do is, besides giving you the big binded packet, they give something that's really directed towards the leadership. So I included that again. Page 5, this is the management letter. So this is kind of what's going to tie is a key performance indicator on this continuing improvement plan. And that's where identifying how do we want our audit to go, like how many findings is too many, how many is the right amount. Ideally we don't have any. We're going to find out realistically the 2 we have are impossible to get rid of basically. So that management letter, the first finding they had was segregation of duties. Good internal control requires a complete separation of duties with respect to the handling and recording of transactions. In order to provide for adequate separation of duties, additional personnel would have to be involved in the performance of the accounting and bookkeeping functions. We recognize this is not practicable at this time because of budget constraints. However, we do recommend that the Board of Education be involved with the financial reporting for the district. So that's basically, and we don't have enough people in the district office to have proper separation of duties. We do internally monitor what we do. One example is Janet, once we get the money for, say, food service or concessions from the buildings, Janet counts it. Angie actually keys it into Skyway. So there's separation of duties there. We have separation of duties when it comes to paying bills. Angie puts them in. I actually approve them. You guys even see them before they go. So the board does have oversight. Purchase orders for larger items. Principals see those. Their secretaries enter them. I approve them. Scott approves them. So even before some larger expense can be incurred, it goes through multiple people. So we do have quite a bit of oversight. So I feel like we give the board enough where we do these financial presentations. Again, you guys approve the bills, you approve salaries and an hourly pay rate, so you're seeing all that up front before it takes place, and you have knowledge of benefits, like what does our health insurance package look like. So you guys kind of know what's going on before any expense actually goes out the door or is committed to. So that's one separation of duty. That's the,
So even though we do all those things, we're still gonna get the finding,
Right.
separation of duties. Next, then, I'll just.
so the
Quiet,
next, the
and
next
We
one.
just gotta give you another name, so.
I was Carlos in
Superintendent.
high school Spanish.
Maybe a different hat for his other,
Right.
The second finding is financial statement preparation. The district historically relies upon auditors to assist in the preparation of district-wide financial statements and footnotes. Accordingly, the district's ability to prepare financial statements in accordance with GAAP is based in part on its reliance of external auditors who cannot, by definition, be considered part of the district's internal controls. So basically, they're not here day to day, so they can't see the daily operations. They come in and have some oversight, but not day to day. They're not paid employees of the district. The additional cost of hiring staff experienced in preparing financial statements, along with additional training time, outweigh the derived benefits. We recommend that the district continues to evaluate the cost and benefit of outsourcing the task of preparing the financial statements to external auditors. So we did do an RFP in my first year here, which would have been 2017. The 3 or 4 CPA firms were probably due to do that again pretty quick here. Just to keep it fresh, we could end up with the same set of auditors, but that's where we can kind of see the price. I think the biggest thing with these financial statements is all these footnotes and the pension and the OPEB liabilities and stuff. The amount of time it would take one person internally to do that just isn't worth the time. To be honest, I wouldn't even know all the standards that would have to be set there. Like they said, more additional training, that would take me out of the office to even learn how to do these footnotes for a one-time-a-year thing. They're on site 2 days doing their audits. They check with things in advance of audit a little bit after. Beaver Dam, when I was there, they also did an external auditor to come in. It's just, as they mentioned, it's really not practical to have prepare those financial statements internally. I think we'd be hard pressed to find a district that doesn't have this in their audit as a finding.
Well, our size. So, there's a lot of sheets of paper in that. And are you done covering the audit stuff? I don't want to jump.
I'm gonna go to just something else on the findings. So this is the stuff that would have been directed towards you guys. Page 7 just gets into more detail on the finding, the criteria, the cause, the effect. If it does point out that it's a repeat finding, it's nothing new from last year. Their recommendation is to just continue to evaluate the cost and benefits. That's on the financial statements, and again, page 8, repeat finding on the lack of segregation of duties. Continue to evaluate cost benefit of additional support, and then finding other segregation of duty things that we can, as a district office, can put in place internally. Page 9, that's a corrective action plan letter that I would have signed and sent to them on what our plans are. The lack of segregation of duties, I point out the district will continue to use other controls where practical to compensate for this limitation. Cash handling, how we post transactions, some payroll oversight that we have, and then some board oversight. So I think there's quite a bit of oversight that we have. Page 10, so this is where we're going to get to the key performance indicators. So last year, the end of the 2018 fiscal year, we had 3 findings because we didn't have a uniform guidance implementation, which is a handbook on how are you guys handling federal grants that you receive, like who applies for those grants, who makes the purchases that are authorized for that grant, who makes the claim for reimbursement on the grant, who deposits the funds when the grant money is received. We didn't have that in place. We do have that in place now. So DPI has that, our auditors have that, on like how you guys handle it. They do a single audit every year, which audits federal funds that you receive over a certain amount. I think it's $100,000. They have to do a single audit then, where they're specifically auditing your federal grant programs. So now we have a guidance implementation in place. So we had 3 audit findings in 2018. the two in 2019 that were repeatable ones that are just gonna be difficult to get rid of. So that kind of ties to this part here with the findings. So do you wanna?
Okay, so that, the piece that Ryan shared is, we don't know what we can ever do about the two findings. Okay, so then the answer to
That
the
letter's
question
been the same
is,
for 20 years.
Yeah.
so then the question is in a district our size, because this is a standard language that we use as best practice from 1090. So it's like, okay, so are we meeting expectations then? Are we exceeding them? Because we say right now we're exceeding expectations. But we will never hit the target of significantly exceeding expectations unless we started to bulk up and add more hires. And if anything, we're trying to reduce and consolidate, right? So we have to be mindful to not consolidate too far because this finding will get exacerbated, right? We'll get more negative feedbacks in the negative feedback in the audit if we were to reduce staffing probably even more. So something to think about, like what are we therefore exceeding expectations, significantly exceeding if we're just getting 1 to 2? Or do we have some kind of, like, by you as a board, you want, even though we just shared with you, we don't think we can ever do it, you know, do you leave it as status quo as we have it there today? Okay. I think we're gonna bring this up again, and our recommendation maybe need to have the one, like if we could get rid of one and get it down to one, maybe that would be the inevitable, let's do this to get significant, you know, but the concept of is
But it isn't
never
going to
having
change
one.
anything. I mean,
No, but it would be, the audit, it comes down to fiscal responsibility as far as our practices behind the scenes. with all
CISA
the
6 has
funds.
got the same thing in there, how many times bigger, you know?
Mhm.
They got the same
You
problem.
basically would have to pay 9 to 11 grand just to get rid
Yeah, those are worth it.
of
Yeah,
it.
there are things to do with it.
So we're spending that
I
much
think the
too.
big thing here is we have it graded where it's like if we hit 4 or more, then we're in trouble. Like,
Right.
we're
Right.
clearly failing, so at least there's this a low bar that we absolutely have to avoid.
So
Yeah,
could
we
we,
shouldn't get below that.
yeah, so there's a fine line, right? Like, we know we're probably always gonna have 2, but if we had 4, hey, what were those? What was going on?
And all these come with corrective action plans too, like we're gonna get to the next thing is the mod rate. So if we don't like our mod rate, well, what's the corrective action plan to improve it?
Okay, so on that, let's go on to the moderate then. Okay?
Okay, one more thing on the audit, I didn't cover it this year, last year we brought Erickson and Associates in. Again, I didn't point out on here, so I put it, it's littered with notes, tables, summations, general information, assumptions, and schedules. It's a lot of stuff. I don't look at it too closely because, you know, the bottom line is the bottom line. So I felt like we gave you all the information on how we performed this year. If you guys look at it and you have any questions, let me know. When the first year I was here, I went through it front to back, so I have notes on what it all means and how I can tie it all up. So the mod rate, which not a lot of people know what a mod rate is, it's basically saying how is your workers' compensation calculated or explained. So that page of, Scott, can you pull up the
Your present, your package?
page? It's page 12.
Can you use that?
Looks like this.
So
Well,
right
the
now, the
next
mod rate, I
page.
believe, is in the safety security part.
Oh, that's where, I was wondering too, where.
Yeah,
it.
that just got me confused for a moment. I'm like, hey, hold on a second. Mod rate absolutely matters. We do want to share it tonight. I think it's in the different section.
Oh, okay.
So,
Well, I guess I
Then
put it
there's
on there
safety and all
because
the
it involves there's a big financial impact on it.
If you went by it.
We can talk about it.
So I did a lot of, I might just come up here instead of using the pointer.
Right there.
That's it.
Yeah, go up a little bit. Well, we can describe it first down here.
It's gonna be busy.
So this is what it's all based on. So here's our mod rate. This is from this WCRM website. You can see in 2018 it was 1.48 and now it's 1.06. It's based on a 3-year rolling average of experience of loss. And a couple years ago we had some teachers that got hurt at work, whether it be FIED or there was one other instance that involved like a head injury. And the the loss of payout on there, they not only factor in the payout, but the potential exposure of a pending issue with individuals. Like, we know this has happened, this is like a retainer amount that they keep on there. So that went down, you can see in 17 it was 1.69 and now it's 1.06. Our thought is it's gonna go up next year because we do have an ongoing case that could be quite expensive. But that 1.06 is the mod factor. That's what's used to calculate our premiums. So then you come over here, this is the top part, this is from our insurance packet that we get every year that explains our insurance premium quote. So they expect our 1920 renewal payroll. This is an estimate that they're using, that you guys are gonna pay $7.4 million to professional school staff, $600,000 to all other support staff, basically that is, and then the bus drivers are $186,000 because they all do different things. They carry different levels of risk. And that's where they factor in these renewal rates. So just got, if you scroll down to the next page. So these are the renewal rates that are updated every year. The Wisconsin, state of Wisconsin sets the rates used to develop workers' compensation premium every year. The Wisconsin Workers' Compensation Rating Bureau recalculates the rate based on actual loss experience reported for each class code. So professional staff, school drivers, and then support staff. So the chart below shows what the current rates are. So you can see obviously school drivers, because they're on the road, are going to carry a higher risk of getting injured. So we're going to pay more in insurance premiums on them than you would for school professional staff. So you can go back to the top. So these numbers we're going to see on the top page here.
I do have a question, just based upon this report. So it says the overall rates in Wisconsin decreased by 8.84%. So does a statewide trend impact our?
Yeah, I think if there's fewer injuries for these labor groups, then that rate's going to go down.
But
They
it's
set the
got the
rate.
inflation, it kind of offsets.
Yeah, I can't explain it quite
Yeah, no, it
with
does
that.
offset.
So these are the rates here. So they're going to take, this is your estimated payroll expectation. Here are the rates for these work classes, and then here's your premium that you would pay on school professional, school other, and then drivers. So they're expecting $85,945 of workers' comp insurance. Then you get down to some of the other stuff here. Here's our mod factor. So they're going to take 6% of this is $51.57. So that's their mod factor charge. $350 for a work study, then we get a premium discount. I did talk to EMC the other day about this .02 and .01. That is federally regulated stuff related to workers' comp. Like if there's a terrorist act that happens at the school, they're accounting for it here, and then the catastrophe is like if you use an example of an earthquake and employees are hurt at school. It still falls under there, but they're going to charge you this minuscule amount to help recover those costs. So that all totals up to our workers' comp insurance premium of $86,720. So at the end of the year, next September, after our payroll is done, a workers' comp audit is going to come in because we're going to pay this up front. We're going to look at what did you actually pay. Like let's say we cut 4 staff members, that total $250,000, and we didn't really pay $7.4 million. We paid like 7.15 or something. They might give us a workers' comp insurance refund, and then we do have a dividend refund that we get occasionally as well. But that's all based on the workers' comp study at the end of the year. So that's kind of workers' comp 101 and how they get there. The biggest number is really this mod factor. I wouldn't expect these to really change enough that they're going to have huge impacts. It's this mod rate, which is controllable to the point of, are you properly educating your employees on not standing on desks as a teacher and changing a light fixture, or not running outside when there's ice, or putting up proper signs for employees to see, or keeping salt records that are on the door so you can clearly see we salted at this time of day, just so you're kind of covering your bases, or putting up the walk like a penguin signs on ice and stuff like
Also
that.
track data and predict some of these things too, by
Yeah.
whatever accidents were, if there's salt-related incidents, stuff like that, or sneak dogs.
Yeah, and
That type of
just
stuff. You can
just the
track that,
training of
control it.
staff on what they should be doing, what they should be outsourcing to the proper person, like our custodians or our building maintenance people that are assigned to that building. Somebody like, are you capable of doing that? Should you be standing on the desk changing this? moving that desk by yourself. The next thing you know, you tweak it back and you're out for 3 days and we're training workers' comp stuff. So that's where the corrective action plan comes in on if this starts to go up, how